studio is Leah Eichler. She is an award-winning editor, a celebrated columnist, and she writes extensively about women and success. Leah is also the founder of Femme-o-Nomics. We'll find out more about what that's all about. Now, later in the segment, before we take a break, I'll have my regular Good to Know Minute when I ask my guests for their top success tip, and you'll hear Leah's. Well, hello, Leah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's really great having you here. Your career began in Jerusalem.
It did, actually. It did. You know, my career has taken many twists and turns, but it did start off in Jerusalem. You know, when I was in university, I thought I would do something completely different, but somehow I managed to get a job working for a magazine in Jerusalem. And I took that opportunity, and it really set my career on a different trajectory, yes.
So from Jerusalem, you came back to Toronto. You're born and raised in Canada.
I'm born and raised in Toronto,
yes.
Toronto.
You came back to Toronto, and how did you get your start as a writer?
Well, luckily, while I was in Jerusalem, I managed to do quite a bit of writing. I was working for a magazine, and I ended up writing quite a few great stories while I was there. And so that actually stepped me on my way to becoming a journalist. And when I returned to Toronto, I bullied my way, although bullied is a strong word, but I bullied my way into a job at Reuters because I thought I would be a war correspondent. That never panned out, but that was my early dream.
Now, you took Reuters into the digital world.
I did.
Yeah, that was an amazing feat for you. What was the climate like for women in that corporation or organization?
It's interesting. You know, I never thought a lot about women specifically when I was working at the company. And through the years, as I evolved, I started noticing more trends in media, more generally speaking. And as a media insider, I paid close attention to metrics and how companies were approaching specific audiences. And I just felt that major media companies, especially ones with especially ones that were focused on business and high-end analysis, weren't speaking to women the way I felt they should.
And why not?
What motivates a lot of media companies is advertising and getting a specific readership. And I felt they were pandering, a lot of media companies were pandering to women in a way that was not very flattering. They weren't speaking to them as intelligent professional beings, but were speaking to them as if they were only mothers or only interested in topics like divorce and celebrity content and popular health. And I just felt the women I knew were much more intelligent. And if you looked at trends of women exiting university and entering the workforce in greater numbers, the long-term audience really was there, and I really felt that media companies should wake up and see their audience.
So you write for the Globe. You have a weekly column,
yes.
Women at Work.
I love that weekly column, and for many reasons. For one, it allows me to meet many wonderful women who I otherwise would never have met, and I still love stories, and I love hearing about women's stories. But what I like about the column is, and I think the Globe and Mail specifically is very forward-thinking when it comes to their audience, but they realize that their demographics could be changing. And I would only write the column because it's in the business section. And my personal bias is to get more photos of women in the business section and more bylines of women in the business section and highlight more women in the business section, because only when you consistently see women highlighted in the business section will it become the norm to think of women as successful business leaders.
So do you think that women are not profiled enough in business sections in media, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, I don't think business sections were targeting women. No, I don't think they were.
And do you think that, are you starting to see that now? I mean, your column is a great...
You know what, it's not just the column, but you're absolutely right. I think lots of media companies, and this is just as an outside observer, are seeing the value of focusing on women's and issues that impact women in business. For example, The Atlantic has done a fabulous job of focusing on this topic. For example, there was the Anne-Marie Slaughter piece a few months ago that, as far as I understand, broke all readership records for The Atlantic online. And, you know, really there are many media companies that are realizing not only is this an important topic, but that their readership is craving more.
So what do you think might be a solution for women to be seen even more in business sections and media?
You know, there are two things. For one, obviously being proactive about it, and there are others, I'm sure, like me, who like to focus on women in business. And I also think this leads to some issues that I see currently in this environment where women themselves and observers of women in business don't see them as influential leaders. And we need to change our mindset and start seeing women as influential business leaders. And I love meeting top women at the height of their game and who call themselves visionaries, who call themselves leaders, because, you know, once you start embracing that model and once you start embracing that title, it really does move the needle a little bit.
So your experience, your passion, clearly about you know, helping women in raise their profiles or become known is obviously important to you. You have now started a really interesting organization. So let's talk about Femme-o-Nomics.
Right. So I launched Femme-o-Nomics when I left my former role at Thomson Reuters. And really the mandate was initially as a content site to focus on talking about women in business in a very intelligent way. And I still do that on my site. And the Globe column does contribute to that as well. But Femme-o-Nomics, you know, there were a few issues in the marketplace that I really wanted to solve. One was the content part of it, and the other part was our emphasis on social media applications and how women use those social media applications. And, you know, as many people know, time is really becoming a lot more precious, and a lot of women, specifically these busy professional women, are beginning to reconsider the investment that they place in social platforms and trying to figure out if there's a return on their investment of their time. And I don't know if there always is. And I saw a great market opportunity to create a platform that gave women a bigger ROI on their social media activities.
So, and it's true, I mean, you know, within the world of social media, you know, we have to add social media on top of everything else we're doing.
Right.
It's not taking the place of anything. It's really added on.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And not only does it add on, you know, time is really precious and gets even more precious, it seems, as the years go by. But I find even myself I'll focus on my Twitter account at midnight in bed, just trying to update people and respond to people that have tweeted at me earlier in the day.
So let's talk a little bit about what your vision is then for Femme-o-Nomics, and this is just really the start of what you're doing.
Right. Really, I launched the company with the mandate to advance women in business, and it is a for-profit model, and I do plan on making money. But I want to advance women in business, and that is through high-end content, which I think women need, and through a social platform that I think women can really use.
And the content is intelligent content.
I hope so. Yeah. That is the intention, is to make it intelligent content. And I'm not the only one. Again, The Atlantic, the Wall Street Journal, and a lot of other major media companies are realizing that, you know, we professional women are a huge and lucrative and influential market, and it's time to start talking to these women in a much more intelligent fashion.
So it's not just about, you know, beauty is important for women.
Beauty is important, and it's a huge industry too.
Right,
yes.
It's a massive industry, but this is more geared to professional women.
Women like to talk about business,
right?
And you know, when I would read content that was targeting women, or I would speak to media companies and hear their logic about attracting a more female audience, and this is going back a couple of years, but you know, it seemed to be a truism that they wanted to attract women through much lighter content. And you know, all the women I knew and still know are very intelligent women, and they think about issues, and they're focused on business, and they like to talk about what's going on in the world around them. And I didn't feel like that content was really reaching them.
So what about, now you have an app too that's in development.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, so the app is called Rally, and it's a mobile collaboration platform. And again, this goes back to my discussion on how we have so little time, and the return on our investment for our social media activities is limited sometimes. There are some great social platforms out there, but they created an opportunity that I saw in the marketplace to really create what's known in the industry as a gamified application that really encourages people to share goals and offer support and build better business relationships in a much faster way.
So how is it going to work now? It's in beta right now.
Right now it's in beta.
Right.
We're about to launch an enterprise version. So we're offering it to enterprises as an application to be used in-house. And there will also be an external facing tool, so a consumer tool that anyone can download in the App Store eventually. Yes, ideally next month.
What has been the biggest challenge that you think, that in terms of what you've been writing about, what do you think the #1 challenge professional women truly are facing? I mean, you have interesting insight. For you, what do you think that greatest challenge is?
I really think it's subconscious bias that permeates almost everything we do. And I'm very cautious when I discuss this topic that this isn't a men feel bias against women conversation. It is not an us versus them, but we all bring our own internal prejudices to every interaction. And as one academic I spoke to ages ago said, everything in the world is really gendered. You can't actually get away from gender. So we need to be a lot more conscious of the biases that we bring in to a workplace and the preconceptions we have when we work with people and how that impacts our decisions. And I think that's a big one. So
how do you think, for you, what would be the solution?
Oh, that's a tough nut to crack. And again, there are things that we can do to change, and a lot of it comes down to perception in the public space, which is where the content comes in. I really think the more we focus on female success stories, the more it changes our perception on what we expect women to be in our current environment.
Now, Leah, we're just going to take a quick break, and it's time for my Good to Know Minute, and I know you've got a great success tip.
My success tip is be fearless and audacious, and always work outside your comfort zone. If you find yourself getting too comfortable, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough, and it's time to take bold action.
Well, Leah, I have really appreciated you coming on the show and sharing your story. Unfortunately, our time is now up. For anyone who wants more information about you, to find out, to read Femme-o-Nomics and also your app, where do they go on the internet?
Well, they could go to rallyyourgoals.com, or I would love to be followed on Twitter at rallyyourgoals.com, and I would be glad to talk to people via Twitter. I'm a big fan of Twitter.
I encourage you to follow Leah Eichler on Twitter.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again for being here, and I wish you all the best of success in all that you do.
Thank you very much. This was a pleasure.
Thanks. Well, I've been speaking with Leah Eichler. She's an award-winning editor, celebrated columnist, and she writes extensively about women and success, and I'd encourage you to follow her on Twitter. Well, and of course, if you are interested in past guests, the show, past episodes, contacting me, I'd encourage you to visit the website at extraordinarywomentv.com. If you are interested in transforming your life, I hope these stories have inspired you. You've been watching Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner. See you soon.